Welcome back, guys, to the fitness podcast. We're literally experimenting a lot of things for the last like 15 minutes. Basically, shout out to the new sponsor of this podcast. It's called Crisp.ai. Go check it out, guys, especially if you work out in a coffee shop, you work out in a busy environment, in a co-working space. It is absolutely unbelievable, purely because it's noise cancellation. So anything going on in the background, you can't really hear it. If you're on a call, important call, go check it out. I know everyone's going to go check it out. Mashallah, it's one of the best things in the world. Literally, Emily's
I'm literally sitting here and they're drilling next door.
And you can't hear anything. That's the beauty of this.
Well, you're you. And so I'm like, what?
This means that you can sit by the TV watching EastEnders, doing your emails and your Zoom calls with your big bosses. It means that you can have your kids next to you crying when you're doing work calls. It's praise be to God for today.
Yeah, if you want to upgrade to the paid version, use the code FitPod10 for 10% off.
She's always wanted to say that.
I don't know about the code, guys, but just go download it. I'm not affiliated. We're not affiliated, but
we got a referral code.
Yeah, we should actually get a referral code. If we get like loads of people saying, actually, I've got some on the fitness podcast, then we should definitely follow them. But it's actually a really cool app. I mean, I discovered it probably a good month ago. When did you guys notice like there's a little sign on the podcast?
It was that one when I was back in the UK, wasn't it? When I was like, stop the podcast halfway through, being like, why are you sponsored by Crisp on your Zoom link and webcam? It's like sponsored by Crisp.
Ooh, that was the best thing about it, because it literally even like when I did like sales calls and stuff like that, consultation calls, it had Crisp. People were like, yeah, what's that, by the way? Like the Crisp thing. And I would literally just give them a shout out about, yeah, it's noise cancellation, it's all of this stuff. It's really, really good. And I find it fascinating, to be honest.
So our referral code is
go on
ref.crisp.ai/u158FA066.
Yeah, and by the way, you guys can get this for like free as well, to be honest, in the very beginning. But there's plans, I believe. I'm just looking at it right now. It's not even that bad, to be honest. It's like $5 per month for Personal Pro. It's not bad at all, right?
No, to be able to
voice,
like, sit wherever you want.
everything.
And like that, one of the biggest limiting factors for me was that to get the co-working space was that you couldn't work in a coffee shop because you just hear the barista go ring with the foamer, and then they'd be grinding some stuff, and then some Russian bird will be speaking next to you with the high-pitched voice, and then you'd be like, you couldn't do anything like that. So like to be able to do this now, I'm gonna go and find my nearest favorite place. But this means that you can work in Ibiza indefinitely, because you can go and sit at the beach clubs and you can go and do Loom videos with the thump background pumping.
I've been experimenting myself, working in a coffee shop for the last like 2 weeks, and so don't use this noise cancelling when you have no noise around you. I'd always like save the minutes basically for like coffee shop and so on. So like if you know you're gonna be busy between Monday and Wednesday with check-ins, use it then. But it was like amazing because I was like, I don't know if this works. Let me just try it. I tried it, especially for Loom. It's great on Loom. And there was no noise. And literally I had a baby screaming right next to me. I had a coffee. You know, everyone's like iced latte. And then they start using, I was like, my God, they're having ice here, this, that. It's a bit crazy. And then suddenly you're like, all right, this is actually not too bad. But the only thing is you have to be okay with distractions yourself when you're giving feedback. So if you're like, gone in, what are you gonna say?
He's gonna say, I'm just amazed because it's like so loud coming from the neighbor. They're like drilling into the wall, and I'm like looking at I have to focus on you while you're speaking, and I'm just amazed that you can't hear this.
Yeah, literally, no one can hear this right now.
Yeah, I'm amazed.
So,
I'm like blown away. So
yeah, to be honest, I always wanted something like this because I can't work in a coffee shop because of the same reason. Because I'm like, if the Loom isn't that great of a quality and I'm giving someone feedback or whatever it is, or if I'm running a call and the quality isn't that great, I've done a whole like consultation before on a coffee shop, and it was amazing. It was just like I could hear someone, and the thing is, they can be quite close to you as well. By the way, it doesn't have to be that bad. But I saw an ad on IG, so the social media, right? Like I don't know how I got the ad. Like sometimes algorithms and so on. But I got an ad where it was like, hey, try this thing up. And then it would be like, this is how it works. Or maybe it was YouTube actually. And it showed like the baby screaming, and then you press the button and you can't hear the baby scream. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be interesting. I just downloaded it for like shits and giggles, really and truly.
Is it because you were trying to search for that T-Pain auto-tuner voice to impress,
Old school,
sing
right?
into it?
Imagine that. Like, imagine if we did that, right? For your check-ins, or we did this with this podcast right now. We had that auto-tune voice. We were like, hello. I don't know. I can't do auto-tune voice right now, but we like, it would be truly amazing to do one, right? But like Emily, I loved Emily's face there. She was just like, oh my god, like there is no noise right now, even now, right?
There's real quality stuff out there. It's not just fake shit that you
Like
like.
V-Shred.
I really want this to work, you know. I really want to believe in this. Like, I want to believe in the beetroot powder, right? And then it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and all of a sudden you go like, oh, okay, there are some quality things out there that you can't
Fat
believe
loss
in.
does work, isn't it? If you're
The amount of times I've had to come home from places because I can't record videos to then sit in my house and look like sit there for 8 hours looking like a lemon on my own. Now I can just like bust out whatever you need to, wherever you want to, as long as you've got a decent internet connection. So even for like this podcast, like I'm going to go and try it next week and go and find the busiest place in Dubai and go and record our podcast.
Yeah, we
I
should
mean, even for your call, by the way, like, you know, Nate, the one you do with the OT stuff, like you could do all of that like in the busiest coffee shop. And I reckon everyone will be like, oh, it's crystal clear. That's when you should try it, because it's like 100 people on that call, right? So everyone's going to be like, yo, it's shy, like get rid of this, whatever, like, you know, straight away, right? And I think it'll be definitely very, very fascinating. But
we haven't had a roundup for a while, have we? There's just a general chit chat catch up. We've just been spraying bars. So Emily's got a disease.
Shall we talk about disease?
Thanks, mate. No, but so I send out. I've done some GI mapping, and the test results came back, and I have a little bit of a dysbiosis going on. So I'm going on a really fucking horrible diet, which is gonna result in me getting shredded at the same time, because it's like no carbs, no sugar, no fun things. It's gonna be me, cabbage,
Was it
broccoli.
keto?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll even try keto just for the shits and giggles, because it probably works within the diet frames, right? So, and I was actually listening to Joe Rogan's podcast with Shonda, what's her name? Shonda Patricks. They talk about keto. I agree with most of it, but not all of it. But I mean, I've never tried keto, so maybe this should be the perfect example to actually go like, all right, get some sticks. Do you spit
Such a
on
good
it?
topic to discuss, right? Like, what's something that's out there loads of times, like let's say in the fitness industry, right? Like, what's out there that we've never actually done ourselves? Like you just said it, keto. That's kind of interesting. I don't think I've done keto either.
It's harder to get into keto than you think. Like, I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm on a ketogenic diet. They're on a ketogenic diet, but they're just really on a low carb diet, which is not necessarily bringing them into ketosis, right? But I've never done. I mean, I've barely done low carb diets, so this will be interesting. But she talks about it, and she said actually for her, because she actually takes blood samples to get her ketone levels looked at, and she's like, even if I eat a little bit too much spinach, it just throws me off the ketosis. So obviously, I think it's dependent on the person as well, how fat, what's it called, fat adapted you are. And I think she had only done it for like 2 weeks, so maybe she needs longer time before she taps
Did you
in.
need well over like a month or so?
I don't think so. I think it's dependent on the individual, and
I think it's like 14 to 21 days. By 28 days, you'll definitely be full in keto.
Yeah, like 21 days makes sense, I reckon.
Yeah, but like you can get there quicker by injecting insulin if you really wanted to. But like that's how some bodybuilders use the keto diet to get in like really serious shape. They want the ketosis for whatever reason that they think is beneficial, and then they just bang a bunch of insulin, which then drives all the glucose into the muscle for the M to be used. So there's no glucose where there generally should be, and that's when you get the ketosis because there's no glucose. Very interesting topic. So the relative amount of how you use glucose and how you dispose of it is the indicative factor in you being able to being able to be in ketosis. Most people who are really, really poor with their sleep and like lifestyle factors generally find that they take longer to get into ketosis because they have a higher level of blood sugars than most people. So like, you know, when you probably felt this, everyone's felt this before, right? When you wake up in the morning and like you just don't eat for a little bit, you just feel a bit lightheaded and like you just like get a bit dizzy. That's just generally down to the poor sleep that you've had that makes your blood sugar levels spike in the mornings. Like I remember doing my bloods out of I was working with a coach who did that type of shit, and I remember like doing it like before a meal when I woke up, and my sleep was really poor. I was like getting about 4 hours like deep sleep, like nothing like, and then just getting about, I'd sleep for 8 hours or 7 hours, but I'd actually only get about 2 or 3 hours sleep or 4 hours of like good quality sleep. I was waking up and my blood sugars were like 6, which is like pre-diabetic. But then I'd eat some food and it'd go in half. So like I'd go back down to like 3 or 3.5, which is like lower than where it should do. So for those that have poor lifestyle factors, that's why they take longer to get into ketosis. So then they struggle with the getting into ketos and getting all of the benefits from it if you actually get there, because they take such a long time. For those that are like, if you're highly glycolytic, so you're doing like performance-based stuff and you're like always doing like anaerobic like sprints and like high intensity workouts, you have a higher probability that you'll get into keto faster if you can stick to the diet and part of it. But can we just go back to what is dysbiosis? You obviously dropped some fancy words there. And for people that might listen to this, including myself, what is that dysbiosis?
You have like reference points in anything, like when you look at markers, like biomarkers, you usually have reference points, and some of my bacteria in my gut are quite elevated. So E. coli, H. pylori, like all of those are actually quite elevated, which means that there is an overgrowth of certain bacteria, and they usually thrive off, you know, the good stuff, you know, sugars and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I haven't sat down with the woman I'll be working with to actually manage this. So I don't have, we can talk about it in the next episode, because that's when I would have had my call with her. I just looked over the actual results myself and I saw it. So I would assume that I'm going on like some form of elimination diet that will target like SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, and then probably do some supplementation. And yeah, I'm gonna do some blood work as well to, you know, just gonna go all out, all up, fucking balls to the grass. I don't even know what I'm gonna say. Probably gonna do a stress test as well. Like I'm probably gonna do all of it just to go. I'm gonna be thorough, right?
You might as well get a smear test while you're there.
I mean, I did my own smear test this year. They sent the home test to me, you know, so that's ticked off.
Everything's home test these days, isn't it?
Everything is home test.
Everything's home test nowadays.
So we're good on that front.
They don't do STI testing, do they, from home?
They must do.
Yeah, you can do. I know you can do a chlamydia test.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
tell you, everything can be done at home nowadays. Everything. You don't even step outside these days. Like literally, it's like get my test done here. Shopping, clothes shopping, everything is done at home, which is insane. Like I would say it's insane, but it's just how like far technology is going, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. Like honestly, not to go like maybe too descriptive with what happens when you do a smear test, but
go on, take us through the lava.
Take us to the next level.
You guys don't know what you're missing out.
Oh, we're missing out.
No, but it's pretty much like a violation to your body to go and have a smear test. I think all the women that listen to this podcast, you will agree with that. It's like
they're nodding right now, yeah.
It's pretty brutal. Like you go there, you sit up, you spread your legs with this machine, right? And then they just like put something in and open you up, and then they take a little stick in and they circle it like fucking hard on these cervix, and then they pull out and put
clockwise
in.
Or clockwise?
Fucking brutal. What?
Is it like anti-clockwise or clockwise, or is it more like a zigzagging motion?
He asked about anti-clockwise.
Yeah. 3 and 3, and then they do some like inshallah, like exorcistic.
Oh wow. It did
Um,
sound like when you were like this, I thought it was
The Mothers of
ecstasy.
Mary's, up and down, praise to God, Mother, Holy Spirit.
so I'm just saying, how can a home test represent that? Like, you don't even know where your civic sits, and you're supposed to like swap around it, right? So I don't know,
Do you know
man.
the COVID test? Are they for real then when we do them at home? Do you feel like we just messed them up? But like, yeah, I think we did good. Put it in,
I
gone,
mean,
send,
in there to
negative.
really get, you want to get up until your brain pretty much when you stick it up your nose. Most people like, they just like take the boogers in in the very opening. But like, if you go to a hospital and they do it, it's like half up your brain. And then they were like, and they say breathe, you just hold your breath. It's like, yeah, for the people listening in on YouTube, you guys can see Kunal's face. So I don't know, like obviously, but maybe they can then detect something. They would be like, okay, we detect something now, come in for a second test, right? But I don't know, like I don't know how it works.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. Like everything's at home nowadays. Any little test you want to do, like even blood work, right? When did blood work become so famous at home? Was it when Medichecks kind of like I remember when Medichecks was kind of big, like
No, they've always
2018-ish?
been, they've always done finger pricking stuff back in the day all of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, finger pricks always been about because of like tests for diabetes and whatnot. But I think outside of that, it's become popular in the common space with like places like Medicheck who give you the offer to go and get your bloods done properly in a lounge somewhere with like the nurse, or the nurse comes over to your house, and then you get the finger prick.
That's a big one actually. When a nurse just comes to your house, you get it done. It's like you don't have to go anywhere. I think that's why I think it's easier to do blood tests now. I think back in the day, people may have just like, yeah, I'll do it later on because it's the whole like I have to travel then. If you're a busy individual, right? Like, do you want to go there all the time? Probably not. You just kind of want like, you know what? Let me just get someone in instead here.
Yeah, the limiting factor overall was firstly the price point of private bloods. Maybe before 6 to 8 years ago, you couldn't get anything for under like 150 quid or something like that, maybe 200. Now you can get a full panel done for 90 quid for males hormones, I think it is, on Medichecks. And you can get individuals done for like 45 quid and stuff like that. So the ability to get it done, and obviously the other factor was that you had to go and play the game with the GP, and everybody knows the same protocol with the GP is that I've never heard anyone say. I've actually heard one person say, "Oh, my GP's great." Everyone else has been like, "My GP's shit," and like that's the common consensus of like the standard of the NHS when it comes to getting like stuff done is that you have to jump through many hoops to go through that ringer, right? You have to go and see them, then they refer you for bloods, then you have to then book when you get the bloods, and then you have to go and do the bloods, and then you wait 6 weeks to get the results, and then like by the time you've actually done the bloods, whatever was you were getting to check might have bloody killed you already.
Or you have to basically, or you got something else going on 6 weeks later, and you're going to have a test done, and then you're like, it's a never-ending cycle of like more tests, and then you're like, you can't action anything you've done before either. So like that 6 week could have just gone. Yeah, like I said, Nathan just said it right correctly. It could have potentially killed someone, because they're like, oh yeah, well 6 weeks later, right? So I think it's quite cool to see technology advance that way. Like, we talk about like social media and so on, but to be fair, social media is also really cool about that part because Medicheck became really famous on Instagram, right? From what I know. Like, was it? I don't remember like them just going, oh yeah, we have a website, and people are like, yeah, just go to the website. I think it was always like, it was always like bodybuilders promoting it, especially in our like circles that we knew, like fitness professionals promoted it a lot more. And fitness professionals, obviously, nowadays are getting way more blood tests than probably maybe back in the day. I'd say. I think that's also really, really cool to see as well. But Nate, was it 2018 when you were doing that? I remember like you eating mangoes and all that kind of stuff.
What, to do the test?
Yeah,
that's a good shout. That's a good memory actually. That was 2018, Embody Days when I came back from Dubai the first time, and I was just playing around with the blood sugar levels, and just to see what it would be like with different foods, right? Because like as much as you bang on about the simplicity of nutrition and everything is calories in, calories out, but like when you genuinely want to go like a little bit deeper and know your body for you, then you can obviously go down the route of like, if if you believe that this method was effective, you can go and look at how different foods affect your blood glucose levels. So then it determines like how your body's reacting to that type of food, and how it deals with fiber, how it deals with oats, how it deals with rice, how it deals with whatever. And like for me, I did this on a weekly basis, like day-to-day basis, sorry, where every single meal, and I've got a good mate, Danny, who I go to Ibiza with, who I'm his best man for his wedding, he's a Chinese dude, right? So these guys have eaten rice before prenatal, so
in their bloodstream, like us.
literally, it's in the bloodstream already. So we're sitting next to each other. We've got the same exact meal because we were like, we have to standardize it with the same exact meal, same amount of grams of rice with whatever chicken it was or something basic like that. And we had the same meal. And we both started with, I started with like a 4.7 blood glucose level, which was fasted for like the last 2 hours. He was fasted for the last 2 hours because we had our same meal beforehand together. And then he started at like 3.9 because he's just a fucking beast. He's just fit and he's lean, and I wasn't at that time. And then we both had the same meal, and he basically, his blood sugar stayed exactly the same, 3.8 to 3.9 over the course of 1 and 3 hours. So he was great at metabolizing that food and like not spiking, needing much insulin, I think like it may have been up to like 4.1 and then back down after the 3rd hour, but that's nothing. Whereas mine went from like 4.6 up to 5.4 and then went back down, and then went down to like 5.1 after like the 3 hours. So like you can just see, and we did it with all these different foods. So for like me, oats wouldn't spike me that much. Rice and potato would spike me quite hard. Any type of simple sugars would spike me way more than anything else. But I was quite surprised about the oats one because you like white bread, white rice, potato, what was the other one that I said? Oats. And I was like, oh, maybe the oats, like maybe they'll be all really the same. Potatoes got high levels of fiber in. Maybe the white rice would be the one that would kind of spike me the most. And it just wasn't. It was just, they were all just different numbers, and they were all like relatively large in change. So getting to know yourself on that level is like probably explains why you feel lethargy after certain meals, how you handle certain foods better than others. And it's just more of an experiment than anything. But again, your fingers are absolutely fucked because you're pricking yourself pre-meal, post-meal, 3 hours later, then next meal, 3 hours later, next meal, 3 hours later, and you're doing it all day, and you're doing the morning one too. So like your fingers are just ruined, and then you got PTSD from putting your hand near one of those little clickers, and you're like, by the 3rd day, you're like,
Did I go and do this?
Yeah. So it's just an interesting concept.
I actually wanted to do that. I wanted to get myself a glucometer and actually try it out for myself, just for that, looking at what food actually fits for you better or not. Obviously, I probably want to get the keto sticks instead because I'm going to go on this diet where there's no carbs anyway. I did my first MediCheck in 2016, actually. Right at the back of my first prep, because I had to pull out. I'm doing a webinar tonight about female reproductive system, and I decided to pull it out because I'm going to talk about like amenorrhea, like the loss of a cycle. So I pulled it out because I remember I had it, and because that was the alarming thing at the point, because I was like postmenopausal in my hormones. So I wanted to like find it, and so obviously like taking these MediChecks, like they're valuable for so many reasons. I did the full panel, right? But there are so many different ones you can get depending on what you want, I guess.
Yeah, Nate, you did it. I remember you did it in 2018 as well, right? Because I remember you talking about your, like, I remember you talking about your levels and so on, and then I remember, yeah, why are you eating mangoes every single day? I remember you at one point. I remember it was with you, and you're like, it was a massive bag of just mangoes you eating. Was there a reason for it?
No, I think that was just I was going through one of those phases that I found it like the frozen mangoes in the freezer section. I was like, I can't get enough of these. So
I remember those days.
No, do you feel like I got my bloods done for because I was coming off anabolics, but also I was just feeling really, really low. So I thought, well, I need to get something done because I've just come back from Dubai, gone cold turkey, and I also need to make sure that I'm safe. And then on top of that, you just like you get interested about all the other stuff that happens on like hematocrit levels and creatinine levels and like thyroid and all that type of stuff. And when you've been playing with a cocktail of anabolics, you also just don't know what you're playing with either. So that was really important.
Yeah, I remember you told me that. You're like, yeah, this was happening, etc. But I remember you're quite open about it anyway, like with your test and all that kind of stuff, right? I remember.
Yeah,
because you used to talk a lot about it.
More open about it now that it's all my business and it's all my brand. So I'll talk about it till the cows come home, really, because people need to know about it.
I mean, we talk about it personally. Obviously, now we're talking about the podcast, but yeah, it's a different subject. But going back to that subject, what's something that, like, let's say in the fitness industry that's been quite popular, but you've never really tried and you never really thought, like obviously Em just gone and said keto. What about you?
We never tried to be moderate.
Go on that.
You always have like an inkling towards a certain type of behavior, whether it's like, oh, I'm going to do a 6-week diet, or I'm going to do a 12-week diet, or I'm going to do low carb, or there's always something as opposed to the principle, right? No one ever just goes, I'm just going to go into a calorie deficit and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's like there's a purpose, there's a reason, there's a method. But actually, saying that, like, I think the biggest thing I hadn't tried before, maybe 2 months ago, before Miami, was like the whole element of like not doing a diet every day, and having periods of not even like structured periods, but I'll go on it in a minute. But like, I'd always thought, like, if you're doing a diet for 12 weeks, do a diet for 12 weeks. If you're doing a diet for 6 weeks, do a diet for 6 weeks. Like, get it over and done with, get it done and get it dusted. But, you know, firstly, that's great if you've got a goal, you've got a photo shoot, you've got a time commitment, that's great. But a lot of people, and myself included, like the diet that I'm doing now, I don't have any time commitments, but I also have bigger priorities than how many things around my bum cheeks. And like being able to get both of those factors, which is a nice social life and experience, and be able to lose weight at the same time, is also a 30,000 foot view, right? Like, you look at it and you're like, over the month, if I do 26 days of dieting and I do 4 days of maintenance or a little bit over, I'm still going to get a return on my investment. So that's what I didn't try that until this year. And that was probably one of the things that I didn't want to do, because I had the viewpoint of that if you go hard, you go hard. And if you don't, you're a pussy. And like, if you don't do it, then you don't want it enough. And that was obviously my immaturity at the beginning of like training people. And actually, I was never like that myself anyway, so I don't know why I was. But I definitely think for now, and what I'm doing right now is like the best way I've ever dieted. Like, I've been 4 different countries in the last 2 or 3 months, and I've not done a chicken and veggie meal at any of those restaurants that I've been to, and I was eating out 3 or 4 times a week. I've not held back on a business class flight to buy it, not held back at all, like with the espresso martinis and like nuts and stuff. And I've had like KFC last week, had a maintenance day at KFC, had one today too, and I'm still like dropping weight every single week to some degree. So like having that ability to just, I think a lot of people call it unconditional permission to eat. And I like that. I like that statement. It sounds a bit fairy, doesn't it? But I like the ability to, like, you could start every day. And if you wake up in the morning like, don't fancy dieting today, you just don't have to. But it doesn't mean that you hit the fuck it button and just do nothing. Like,
10,000 calorie challenge instead.
I've had pancakes, a chai latte, a frappuccino, and a burger with a milkshake today. The rest of my day will be like low calories. I've already hit my quota.
Yeah,
we actually say this quite a lot. Do you want to talk about like the hashtag? It was still a deficit, kind of when we were on trips.
Yeah. Well, we just did that whole strategy of like, if you eat oats and whey twice a day, you're full enough to then go out for dinner. And if you don't act like a penis, you're still in a deficit. So we just did like, well, Kunal doesn't eat anything other than like chicken and veggies and stuff, and doesn't like spicy food. So we never really went for.
Can't handle spicy. I mean, to be honest, like a lot of Asians, I always say this to like a lot of my like Asian clients and stuff. I'm like, the reality is you actually can't really handle spice that well. You think you can, but it's like it's a competition. Yeah, and then you're like your digestion's completely off, and then they realize, okay, you know what, you're not actually that wrong.
Yeah, it's like a dick measuring competition for the Asians, because they go like, it's not how big my muscles are, because you guys don't have muscles, but like it's how
much sriracha can you handle?
Yeah, how much chili, what chili flake do you like, and how hard can you go with it? You know,
it's actually true though. Like, it's one of those where you like, I've seen in like tables before, they're like, go and eat that, and I'm like, why would I want to eat that? I'm just going to be in a mess. Like, there's a point.
In your head, you go like, I should probably do it to prove something.
Not really. Like I'm actually maybe when I was younger, yeah. When I was like maybe like 10 years old, because you see everyone doing it. The older you get, you're just like, this makes no sense. Like, why is everyone doing the same thing? Like, you feel like absolute crap the next day, or you're in the toilet the whole next day. Like, do I want that? I don't know. I don't know. I've got a podcast to do. I've got this to do. I've got that to do. It's like there's no point. Me spending half an hour, 45 minutes in the toilet just clearing up everything. It just wouldn't make sense. But yeah, we used to have that saying called still a deficit. Every trip we went to, like we still wanted to have things that we wanted to have, right? Like if you went to Philly and we went to Philadelphia, and it was obviously what they're known for, cheesesteaks. So we're like, all right, let's go and have a cheesesteak. And we still did that. We didn't go have a cheesesteak every single day, which I think sometimes people do that. Which is like they go to New York, they're like, I'm gonna have the New York pizza every single day, and it's like you can have it once, and you still had a New York pizza. It's not like you haven't had a New York pizza. Same goes with like I think we went to Italy, we still had a calzone that very day, and the calzone worked out quite nicely. I remember I still dropped like 1 or 2 kilos most trips, and it's all good. So I think it can still be done, in my opinion. So you said moderate, right? So being moderate, something you never really tried. I guess I don't know. All or nothing is it the right word? No.
I guess no. It's just more just like I think it's more just time specific pressures plus a mentality that didn't want to be soft. That was probably the perspective that I had when I was doing it. I didn't want to be soft. I didn't want to say I'm just chilling dieting. Like I didn't even know what like a moderate deficit was. It was just 40% or nothing.
But is it because of your environment? Do you feel like the people around you who always then no one ever did a moderate diet, right? So everyone just went, I got prep, I got 16 weeks, I'm gonna go hard, and this is what's going on. And that was your environment. So you just realize I can't do anything different to this environment because if I do it, I'm gonna get forked. Is that what you thought?
We worked in a place where we were conditioned to do this type of like this. We've been so hardwired conditioned to thinking what dieting is. I mean, I remember this last year as well when when I was prepping last year, I kind of said, like, I don't know if I'm dieting or not, but I was losing weight because it's again, like we have created these rules for what dieting means, that it's like, can I feel like I'm dieting because I'm losing weight, but I don't feel like I'm dieting? Then so I was there last year when I was prepping for that photo shoot in December. It's like, well, I'm losing weight, but I'm not fanatic about it, and I am not very restrictive in any way or form, and I will have larger deficit days and maintenance days, and they will be more intuitive. And I couldn't actually, I didn't want to classify it as a diet, but it actually was a diet, right? It was just not how I perceived the rules of dieting would have been, right?
Yeah, because you actually said it like really well. You're like, I remember at one point you're like, I don't even know how I'm tracking my food. I think I'm now going to track my food. I remember at one point you were like, I'm actually not tracking my food.
I didn't track my food. Like I tracked my food a few days, but it just always, I don't know. I didn't want to do it. And partly, and I think I said that in an old podcast, like I also wanted to prove the point that it can be done without the tracking, right? Easier to do it yourself before you try and teach other people how to do it. So I was, I guess, in my own experience, like my own little guinea pig in trying something new and also breaking my own belief about dieting. So I wasn't as shredded at the end of it, even though that wasn't also my goal. But should I have?
Were you happy?
I was very happy. I was very happy. But I think, if I wanted to go that extra mile, maybe I would have had to do something differently, or maybe I wouldn't. I don't know, because it's hard to say. Like when you want to go to that little bit of an extreme, you might want to be a little bit more meticulous.
Then could you just do it for longer?
Yeah, but then I had a time restriction, right? So yeah. So I don't know, but it's interesting that you're doing the same way, and it feels strange.
How long can it go on for though? That's the question, because you still had the time frame, right? Will Nate eventually have a time frame, right? You probably say something like, actually, I'm done now.
There are periods of time where I'm like, I want to get in shape for this particular thing. So I'm like, got Nikki Beach in 2 weeks. Let's get a little bit saucy. Or like, I'm going to be best man at that wedding in Cyprus in October. I'd like to be just like take my top off and like just be absolutely dagger. and not worry about stuff. Like it's more like not worry about it and be confident as opposed to dagger. Like I don't care how many veins I have on my abs, but it's more like confidence side thing. So there is like these time pressures, but also do remember like probably the way that I'm doing it for myself, my diet days are quite aggressive so that I can have more frequent of these maintenance days, because I like that when I have a maintenance day, I like to eat nice foods. I don't want to like just have 300 calories extra than the other day. Like I'd rather just diet and not have 300 calories in the bank. So for me, I'm experimenting with going aggressive as long as I can based after the maintenance day and just seeing how many days I go for. And then when I get to the point where like I wake up this morning, I go, it's 6 days since I've had like a refeed. I don't fancy doing it. And my body weight's like, I've hit an all-time low this morning. I'm feeling hungry and a bit tired and like sleep wasn't that great. So I can be like, I'm just going to have a maintenance day today. And that's absolutely fine. But if you were doing things a little less aggressive, so for example, if I'm doing like 1100, 1200 around that range, if I was doing 1600, then I'd also probably not need to have it in such a short fashion, not every 6 days, because you've got more energy potentially, or you get less results if you did do 1600, then you had a maintenance day and then came back down again. So like I'm perfect with the lifestyle that I've got, with like working out of a co-working space and like being busy until most days, like to 8-9 p.m. Like food isn't really my major priority. Like as long as I get my coffee in the morning, which I don't track because I have a latte every fucking morning, so I don't need to. And then basically I just track 1100 calories from there, and like I'll eat my first meal at 2 or 3, and then 2 meals after that, I'm done.
Again, that works perfectly well for your lifestyle as well, right? Like I've always known Nate as like aggressive dieter, to be fair. Like every time he's dieted down, he's always been like super aggressive. Again, it works some people doesn't. But for him, it's always worked relatively well, to be honest. I remember even like 2019. Remember when you're like in Brazil and stuff like that, and you were like dieting. You look lean. I remember that point. I think it was the lowest weight ever, right? I had known you, I think it was like 62, something like that.
Yeah, that was like 62 kilos. No, I'm 72.
Veins coming out of sitting there, so it must be the salt from the burger.
Yeah.
And the heat.
That's what they call it, Dubai chicken.
Yeah. For me, it's probably been like, I think probably for all of us actually. I don't know if anyone's done it. CrossFit, like it's quite popular, right? I don't think. Did you? But I think it's like it's never really appealed to. Even when I like got into the industry and things like that, I'm like, it's never ever appealed to me to like go to like a CrossFit gym and be like, oh yeah, this is gonna be lit today. Like this is gonna be amazing. Could be though. But I watch documentaries and I'm like, no, this doesn't look too bad. But at the same time, I'm like, it still doesn't appeal me. Like I'd rather watch Dorian Yates train, for example, than watch whoever's the CrossFit god or whatever right now. For me, it's always been CrossFit for some reason. I've never tried it, but I don't know if I'll ever try it. I'm open to it, but I'm not like, it's never one to appeal to me. Because sometimes it's interesting, like how you get into the industry and what attracts you straight away, and you kind of go for it, right? Like you go straight into like, I'm going to go to CrossFit now. And for us, it's always been like body composition, or most likely been body composition as soon as you go in the industry, right? Some people say, I want to be a CrossFit coach.
A huge thing when we got into the fitness industry. It wasn't huge. There wasn't like globally huge, but I guess that's also with social media and everything else. But like there was no documentaries on CrossFit. There was no Olympic Games in CrossFit, Yeah. And so maybe if we were gotten into the industry now, it would have been a different ballgame. I think, I'm avoiding CrossFit because I do think I would enjoy it.
So, is that the only reason why you're like, I can't be bothered because it's one session you're in?
I have a bit of an addictive personality when it comes to certain things. I just go like, I don't have time to get into CrossFit because it's an everyday thing. So, yeah. Maybe.
Why, Nate? Would you get into it?
No, well, I did it a few times, but my knee doesn't like any of the exercises.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no way with the injuries that.
So, like, I remember doing one of them, which was like, it was fucking brutal. It was like a ladder, so it was like something like 10 chins, 10 deadlifts, 20 chins, 20 deadlifts, 20, 30 chins, 30 deadlifts, 40 chins, 40 deadlifts, 50 chins, 50 deadlifts, and you had to put a time on that or something like that.
Yeah.
And like obviously, like you have to stop because you can't just do 30 pull-ups in one go after doing the 20 beforehand. So like you're there and you just break it into like, so you're doing like two pull-ups and 2 deadlifts, and then come back again and come back and again and come back again, and you end up just doing like these yo-yo in between them, and you're like, and your cardiovascular system is great from it, but you get it's brutal. But if you've got the technique and you've trained for a bit, then it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've seen more like the rise of, which is interesting. So we'll see. But yeah, for most of you guys who are listening to this, let us know what you've never like tried, but it's always been like popular amongst your friends or family members. Because I think it would be quite cool to know, like most people would be like, oh yeah, never tried low carbs. Something like Emily did mention, but yeah, it'd be quite cool. But yeah, we're back next week. In the meantime, obviously share this with your friends, family members, your pets, whatever it is. And yeah, we'll be back next week as well. Peace.
Shout out to the Trinis.
Yeah, shout out to Trinis. We're still waiting for your answers.
And Tobago, not just Trinis, sorry. That's not LGBT and all. Yeah, literally.
Goodbye.
On that note,